Hello.
Hey,
Is this
Hi.
working? Are we
Yeah.
live?
I think
yes,
so.
it says live 39 seconds.
Oh boy.
Amazing.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to our awkward live stream. Chloe will be your host.
Sure. I can be the host.
Show who you're next to.
Oh, I'm in our Victorian exhibit. I'm next to a generic bludgeoned buddy. Yeah. Kind of taking inspiration from Andrew Borden, but also other things. Unrelated to Gacy, obviously.
That's right.
Yeah.
All things Gacy.
Yeah. You're in the Gacy headquarters in the upstairs in the museum.
Yeah, there's a very large barge that keeps going by.
Yeah.
It's very loud. Yeah, I'm in Savannah's Gacy exhibit. Some beautiful John artwork hanging on the wall. Not the most talented person, but
yeah.
What is that character doing with his mouth?
I don't know. I can't figure it out.
This guy?
Yeah.
He's got something in his mouth.
Well,
like a water pick, maybe?
Maybe. But anyways, I also wanted to thank everybody who's bought the book already, unrelated to the painting behind you. So, yeah.
You're not comfortable being the host, are you?
Not really. I mean, it's fine. No, I don't know. I just wanted to, just say thank you for everybody who purchased a copy already. This whole project was it kind of was a long time in the making. I know you'd been working on it for a long time. So it's nice that it's actually available. But
yeah, we sold the first 100 that come with the extra packet of goodies, and I think we've got like 20-ish of the bundle left over. So if that appeals to your interests, I don't know which version I'm holding, but this is what it will look like. We had a version come that we ended up discarding because the covers had some sort of, I don't even know what was wrong with them. They were weird.
Peeling. Yeah.
Yeah, why were they peeling?
I don't know.
But anyways, this doesn't look like it's peeling, so this is probably a good one.
They did it right the second time. That's okay. Another reason it took a while.
Yeah, true. Because this has been the gray face graphic designer, Ryan McCardle, who is one of my best friends, actually did the graphic design on this under a pseudonym because he was afraid that, I don't know, that it would affect his career or something. Best dude ever, and unfortunately he passed away a year and a half ago. But so this is actually the last thing that he worked on before his passing. So it's cool to hold, as I was very close to him. So that's nice tribute. Although maybe it was not a tribute because I just outed him for doing the graphic design. But I think it was a career. He was somehow afraid that, Gacy and working for record labels would somehow clash. But obviously it would have been fine.
Yeah.
Who else is here with us, Chloe?
James, you're here.
Hey.
Thank you for being here.
Oh, anytime.
Yeah. I mean, did maybe a little introduction would be a good way to start
Sure.
this whole thing. Yeah.
My name's James. Gacy Visits. I actually used to visit with John from 1992 through 1994. My last visit with him was April 1st of 1994. And of course, he was executed on May 10th of 94. So, had 11 visits with John over those 2-year period. A lot of, interesting discussions with John. Got to know a little bit about Question of Doubt, which was originally titled The 34th Victim. And that's one of the things that he did talk about early on. Got to see him talk about, the different, I guess, the development of the book that I think was already developed. I think that he just put his different changes and different twists on it during the course of those 2 years while I was visiting with him. And then, pretty much got to see the end part of it whenever he, I guess, released the, slipcover edition of A Question of Doubt that had the picture of what I think Pogo was on the front of it, and the signed copy, numbered copies. So yeah, I was pretty much there towards the end and got to see a lot of it and got to see his frustration, I guess, and his I guess the best way to put it, his greed at the very end up into the execution. So
Yeah.
that's that in a nutshell.
Yeah. Did you actually on that note, did you how did you see it change, I guess, over the years? Because you have an earlier version of it. And then
Yes.
did you see the end result ever? Did you
Yeah,
buy your
well,
own?
the what originally started is in September of 92. I went to go see John on a visit, and while we were there, he brought out some papers, and one of them was said legal trial copy of let me see here, hold it. It says legal points trial, and I didn't know what it was. I just thought that it was some more of some of his trial information because of my first visit. That's what he showed. So what he did was he gave me a copy, and it's it's got his letterhead on it with his signature, and this right here was what he decided to say, this is one of 10 working copies of this chapter for the above mentioned book, A Question of Doubt, the trial chapter. So this was a rough draft, and you can see right here that this is page 1, and it goes all the way to page 284 of the trial. Now, I think you can see how thick that was.
Mm-hmm.
That is probably one that is not edited down. So that was one of the 92 editions, I guess, that I got to see. Prior to that, then of course we know that there was a copy that was passed around, I guess, in 87. And that was probably the one that had that he was probably calling the 34th victim more in his circle of inner friends at the time. And of course, Ryan, I think you've got a copy. That's this one, which you can see how thick that is. I just have one that's got a copy of The Question of Doubt with him. And this is sort of like a watered down copy, I guess, not so edited. And then during the course of the visit, he gave me another copy, and it was just about that thick. And I guess that was probably more of what he released at the end.
Mm-hmm.
And I cannot find it. I don't know where it's at, but it's sort of like everything is sort of like edited down, shortened down. And then towards, I guess it was the beginning of 94. That's when the nice copy was going to be released. He may have brought one copy of the black copy out in the rough draft form. That's what it was going to look like. And then he started talking about price. And I guess that's when I just started getting annoyed at John because, I had sold all these paintings for him to buddies. And, y'all seen the copies of my money orders that, probably 50 or so paintings that I sold for him and sent the money to him in $50 increments. You can put as many of those $50 money orders you can in one envelope. It just can't be over $50. And he was talking about price, and he knew I wanted a copy, and he wouldn't give me a break. I was like, I've got to get this money. And I was like, dude, everything I've done for you, and it was just like, he didn't care. And you both have always heard me say that dead Gacy was a whole lot kinder to me than live Gacy
Mhm.
because of just his infatuation with money.
Yeah.
And like I said, I would drive up there to see him. I would spend $20 every time on snacks while he would wolf down Snicker bars and a 6 pack of Pepsi and eat those Lancashire ham and cheese sandwiches, and then go to the post office. And most of the time, I was spending my own money on postage, because it was such a hassle for him to reimburse me. I have to go through this. And then we know, if we talked with other friends of Gacy, he would reimburse them immediately or pay
Mhm.
phone bills for them and stuff like that. And, I'm spending $30, $40 a pop mailing out 6 or 7 paintings at the time, which was expensive to me and wouldn't even cut me a deal on it. And I can't remember if the first copy was 200, 250, or 500, but it was something that was out of my grasp as far as disposable income as a college student, And no, and he knew that. He knew that, where I worked at as a student, and it was just like, oh well, you know. And then I
Yeah,
remember, I'm sorry, go ahead, Ryan.
I think you told me when we first met that it was 250.
Okay, yeah, it was, and that, like I said, that was too much. And I remember, I think you've got the price list probably there, that orange looking color price list when he wanted me to start selling for him. So he said that he was going to have a 20% increase on paintings. So my 20% and his 20% wasn't the same. I actually had to update that because whenever a pogo was $50, I added 20% to that. So I was like $60.
Mhm.
And he's like, no, that's not the way it works. And that's when he came up with, it was, a pogo went from 50 to over 100. Because I think on that one, I think it's listed, I think I got it at 115. And I think that's maybe me making $10.
Yep.
I think so. It was like 105 and I listed it at 115. So there was no really money made on my part,
Right.
especially if you're figuring gas and the snacks for him and everything.
Mhm.
Like I said, the cheap bastard wouldn't even give me a deal on,
Funny.
an extra copy.
I think what's really funny too, and I guess we'll talk a little bit about the bonus material, but one thing real quick, from a collection that we'll talk about, Ryan has the whole price sheet and receipts of A Question of Doubt being published originally. And he couldn't cut you a deal. Yeah, that's crazy. But anyways, speaking of that, I guess Ryan, if you want to quickly mention or not, it can be long too, how this came to be. Like, I know there were kind of two integral collections that motivated this decision to print this again. So, yeah, can you talk about those?
Yeah, I mean, everything comes back to Karen, his sister, regardless of the other collections that I got that led me here. When John was executed, he assigned all rights to his sister Karen, everything, every copyright for his art, the books he wrote, everything. And so she assigned all of that to us, Chloe and myself. And that's how we were able to even reissue this book. But years before that, I befriended a guy named Bill Helmer, who ended up, I found out, was the actual publisher on Question of Doubt, although he used a pseudonym. What name did he use in this book? This is the original copy, of which I have way too many. So he used D.H. Naismith. I can't remember why he used that. He told me. I just can't recall. I record all my conversations, though, so I have it somewhere. But anyways, when I found that out, I was like, well, I would love to buy whatever you have. And he sent me, I don't know how many copies, say 20 copies, 20 of these, like the original copies that he had left. And then So the first 500 copies were numbered, and he sent me the original stamper, which is, I don't know why. I guess that's why I own a museum. I love shit like this. I already had owned a copy of this prior, but it didn't have the hand numbering. It had Gacy's autograph, and it didn't have a slip. So I think I was just bitching to Karen, Gacy's sister, one of the times we were chatting, that I didn't have like a complete version of Question of Doubt, and she whipped this out. So note that this is not a pogo. And I was like, what's this cool thing you're handing me? And if you slip it out, I don't know if you can tell, but it's literally number 1 of 500. And it has all the autographs and everything inside of it. So that was something she just gifted to me, which has been in the museum since we got it. And again, that was all years before she assigned the copyright of this book to us. She obviously took a liking to Chloe and I because, we were not, well, I was going to say we're not shitheads, but some people would argue that I am a shithead. But regarding history and Gacy, I think she was just wary of the people that had been approaching her, of which there were many, trying to buy her brother's stuff. And where, I'm trying to say this delicately, but what hands those would end up in, because it's a lot of sensitive material. It's not just like books that were widely available. Number 1 of 500, which is cool, but she also had very personal, insane stuff that I'm not even comfortable talking about, that she left to Chloe and I. So it was basically, are those the 2 collections you were talking about, Chloe?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Helmer is still kicking. I don't know how old he is, but he's a badass. I think he's like 85, 86 years old. Huge Dillinger collector.
Mm-hmm.
Used to work for Playboy.
I think that's how they got introduced, right?
Yeah. Do we have that up here still?
Yeah, we have his all of the Helmer, all the best Helmer stuff, from when they like each other to when Gacy got mad at him.
Yeah. So this was
bitch
right at the end of Gacy's life.
It's so good.
So basically, Helmer's pitching Gacy on doing a Playboy article. Playboy is vaguely interested. Things don't go as planned, as you can imagine, because it's Gacy. And so when they were still friends, Gacy, because Gacy would always send like little goofy, fun things through the mail, like, I don't know, dick and fart jokes and like pretty, I think, offensive, like Polish jokes and like, I don't know, just stupid shit. So he sent this novelty $1,000 bill that says, "Hi ho, Bill Helmer, Mad Dog, John Wayne Gacy," and he signed it. So now this was when they're friends. Now they're fighting. And so this is 11/29 and 93. Enclosed, Dillinger clips all. I have never threatened anyone. Please return all of my things, all copies. Question of Doubt, $1,000 bill, photos at once. I don't have time for games.
You can tell he's so mad because he hand wrote that.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
oh, yeah, that's true.
He didn't take yeah. And then I love Bill's response to that.
Yeah, which he waited until a month before John died to send this response, which was, "Dear John, always a treat to hear from you. I'm not sure what new money-making plan or piece of misinformation triggered your latest correspondence. Anyway, you shouldn't be wasting precious time citing copyright law without a better understanding of it." And then he just basically chastises him. Yeah, I won't ramble, but it's good. It's in the
It's good.
museum if you ever want to see it. But yeah, Bill was just a fucking badass. Simply put,
Yeah.
Helmer was awesome and has great stories of, you know, collecting crazy gangster stuff to obviously meeting people like John. And again, like I said, he's still with us, fortunately.
Yeah. I guess on the note of the reissue of this book, are there any misconceptions, for starters, about A Question of Doubt in general that exist right now? Because the book has been out of print for so long. There was only one publication of it, and there were super limited amounts. So I don't know. It seems like rumor mills exist, and
Yeah, I mean, so it started the very first time he wrote something. It was called, as James said, The 34th Victim Interviews from Death Row. I don't know why that always makes me laugh. Because it's not really interviews. It's just him. It's just John. There's no interviews. He's just... Anyways. And in the original version... I guess basically in the 87 version, which ended up becoming Question of Doubt, it's very uncensored, as you can imagine. And then he started working with this guy, Clell Cunningham, who was an actual writer, who helped him not sound like such an idiot, because John was not the world's greatest writer. And then Clell was encouraging him to maybe not consistently use people's real names or take this or that out. So we've published like it's not the 87 version and it's not the 93 version. It's somewhere in between there. There's literally like 100 different versions because he constantly was modifying it, and he would send to Craig Bowley in New York, and he would send to, I mean, everyone, and be like, hey, help. It might surprise everyone to find out that John was a user. So you're only so good to him, right? Like, you're only so useful, and you would only stay in his life consistently if you were providing either money or sex books through mail with the covers ripped off, or help with his various missions, be it filing appeals to get off death row, or he had a million hustles. And unless you were hooking him up, you're pretty useless. He'll still write you, but it's not going to be the same sort of relationship that he had with people like my buddy Randy White, or, like I said, Craig. So yeah, our version reprints the uncensored, the sort of what I perceive to be the best version that was uncensored. Because the 87 one is way too rambly and just it's not a fun read. I'm not even suggesting ours is a fun read, because it's very information dense and very
timelines.
He just wants to ramble about the day he was, more or less the day he was arrested, till the day that they told him he's going to jail for the rest of his life and be executed. So that's his whole mission with this book. It doesn't talk about anything really other than that. So, but it is interesting. It's interesting because there's a language to John.
Yeah.
And you have to learn the John language to understand what he's saying. And it can be frustrating as hell to read what he's saying unless you're in his brain or in his mind, which I know sounds stupid, but I have so much Gacy stuff that I feel like disturbingly, I feel like I'm related to him or something. But I know what he's saying, and he's never honest, but he's also not, well, he is dishonest. How do I phrase that? He has a tell, and you have to, it's like if you hang out with gamblers or something, you have to understand how to read them in order to be successful with them. And I'm not so sure, and James, you can speak to this, but I'm not so sure if a lot of his cohorts, that's not a good word either, friends on death row, people that visited him, wrote to him, talked to him on the phone. I'm not so sure many of those people were sort of aware of that at that point in time, because you have limited time with him. You have 20-minute phone call or a 45-minute visit or whatever. So, you know, I probably am just in a unique perspective to have hundreds of hours of audio from all these different people that have never been heard by the general public, in addition to a lot of insane stuff that Karen gave to me, to be able to read something like this and say, okay, he's not saying he's innocent, but he's also not going to tell you what he did, but he will kind of tell you what he didn't do. And I'm not even saying that that's necessarily honest, but when you start learning him, you realize you can kind of, you know, look through that and understand, okay, so this is who he killed, and this is when he killed this person. And oh, he's talking about being out of town here. That's kind of a tell, weirdly, that he's copping to doing something out of town. It's a whole language. So I think that, I don't know that answers your question, but it's, you just have to approach it knowing that he is full of shit, but he's also weirdly honest. And his tone changes when he is being honest versus when he's full of shit. And it's kind of fun once you start picking up on it. You know, it's almost like
it's cat and mouse.
Mm-hmm.
You can consider yourself a detective when you're reading this and be like, okay, let me see if I can figure out what the fuck Ryan's talking about here. And it just the more you get into his headspace, the more fascinating it is when you hear his interviews and whatnot. Because again, he's a lying idiot, but he will be honest in a really weirdly Gacy way.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's definitely a whole language, and truly once you start to piece it together, listening to interviews and even just reading things like, you know, lines in a book they resonate differently, I think. And I'm sure, James, you knowing him personally, you could probably, you know, speak to that a little bit too.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. I think it was, you know, sort of like, in a sense, starting off, it's like he's the puppet master and he wants to know if you can play the game at his level. You know, like I always said, and I've told you both this, you know, I think that John would have been more open to the truthful side of his case had I asked the questions the right way. And that's what he was, I think, trying to see. And I learned that at the end. But you said something that was very important, right? You said, you know, you got to get into his headspace. And the thing that I found out is that towards the end, when I was getting into that headspace and started understanding it, the more anxiety and more depressed I became because of that. Whereas he was exempt from those feelings. If that makes sense. It was just like he had, as we know, no appreciation for human life whatsoever. And if you would even think on that level, you know, come to that, it does a number on you, because you start thinking, man, what is wrong with this? And then you start questioning everything, you know, and it was just about the way he delivered it and the way that he would talk, you know, like on visits when I would take friends with me, like some of my female friends, and just the vulgarity that he would just talk about in front of them. And, you know, it was just like, there was no censor. There was nothing that was off limits. But somewhere in the middle of all of that, there was truth to what he was trying to say, or he would slip up like he does, you know, like in the wrestler interview. Well, I'm not responsible for that, or, you know, like that. And he sort of tells you, and then it's sort of like one of those, oh shit moments where he's like, oh, did I just say that out loud? Sort of like Homer Simpson.
Yeah.
You know, you would see those sort of things. I've told y'all both this. One of my friends went with me one time, and we were sitting there talking, and we were just hitting John with questions. And he called my friend Mike Buktovich out of the blue.
So scary.
Where do you get that? And it scared my friend, literally, because he thought, what? I really believe that my friend may have resembled this kid, and I really think that he was probably reliving the experience,
Wow.
honestly.
That's awful.
It was so out of the ordinary. And that was the sort of things that you would see. And I also learned that I had to choose visits wisely with John because, you mentioned, you know, I think the shortest visit I ever had was maybe 2 hours. And that's because they got pissed off with him and they pushed us out. But I tried to plan visits on slow days. Like, don't choose a Friday unless you got a guarantee. Try to choose through the middle of the week because then I was always getting my 4 to 6 hour visit with him, which was something that it was something that I could appreciate because you never knew what you were going to hear. And the one thing about John is he could never remember what he talked about the previous meeting. So you may hear the same story completely different than what I had it before. It's just like he never said, he went from saying that I never killed anyone. And I always get asked this question. It's very important for people to understand. The only thing that I could carry into that room was me. That was it. There was no pens, no pencils, no cameras, no video recorded. That was, Nick Howell told me years ago. Well, I called Nick Howell and asked him, what I needed. And he says, just yourself. He said, I know you're a student. There's no concerns. And there was no way to videotape or say anything. That's also goes to the confession. We know that John confessed to the Des Plaines police, but because, some of the victims hadn't been identified, even to this day, and things like that, I could not get the confession statement to question him about because I would have.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't get the confession statement until after he was executed through Freedom of Information Act. That was the only way. Prior to that, it was not released. So if I didn't have the papers that were associated with the trial or what have you, the confession statements, there was no way to question him about it. It was like a light switch sort of flipped. He confessed in December of 1978, and then he talked about it all the way up till Menard. And then when the public started getting involved in the case, other than the people that were around him on the road, who he would talk about frequently about his case, but normal Joes, it was like this whole thing never happened. There wasn't, all those bodies buried in the crawl space. He didn't dump these bodies in the Des Plaines River.
Right.
And he went from talking about the Greyhound bus boy to admitting, he killed him in self-defense. And then one day he talked about Robert Peast, and he's like, had Kozensack had a warrant, Peast was in the attic. And it was just so you didn't know what to expect because you didn't know when the faculties were going to break down. But you also got to keep in mind too that when Helen Morrison got the permission from, I guess, Karen to extract the brain, and whenever the evidence come back that there was no gray matter or no dead parts of the brain, that right there says something else about it. And that's something, I always ask kids in my class. I teach a serial homicide class, and I was like, when you got people like Bundy and Gacy and people of that caliber, do you think these days there is such a thing as being born evil? And over the past 5 years, you would probably be amazed at the number of students who say, yeah, I truly believe that exists. I believe that there are people who are born evil. And that's scary that we're even thinking like that now.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where, with the exception of Bundy, the mold was broke with John Gacy.
Mm-hmm.
And we know that there's more than 33. There's got to be, there's so many things. I think, it's one of those things whenever Mr. Tovar said at the last con, he said, well, when he asked John the question, how many is it, John? Is it 33? Is it, 40? Is it 45? He says 45 sounds like a good number. And then Mr. Tovar, he said, well, John said, well, it's up to you to find that out. And I think, for John being the way he traveled, and after I had talked to Mr. Wrestler when I was in graduate school, and he talked about that big map in John's house that had all those thumbtacks. And he said they were covering the entire United States. And I was like, 33 could turn into 66, 45 could turn into 90.
Mm-hmm.
You're a traveling serial killer,
Yeah.
like a construction worker, a truck driver, a carnival worker, or somebody of the armed services. You're in and out before an investigation can be completed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There's a frightening amount of no disrespect intended to these people, but I'll call them faux documentarians who claim, and there's a lot of these people that claim that he was only comfortable killing at home. So there's no way that and Kunkel would tell me that also. But then sometimes when I wasn't recording, Kunkel would kind of say the opposite. But it's just such a sort of naive way to go through life, assuming that, like, in other words, if he's driving away from his house with bodies in his trunk to dump them, 45 miles outside of Chicago, that already shows me that he's comfortable driving around with a dead person.
Mm-hmm.
So I think assuming the house is the only place where he commits crimes is pretty fucking naive.
It is really naive, and it seems like more of an out for not continuing investigating because it was so daunting. Like it would have been just astronomical. But yeah, and they had plenty to obviously convict him. So why look further is kind of the attitude, which really sucks because we're left with like who else was a victim and where are they and who are they and how many are there? Because
that's why I've been making that documentary.
Yeah. And the thing about it too is, John had the record until Ridgway came about. Now there's something to think about when you talk about victimology, and you just think about 33 victims that we settled on that number. We know that that's what they put in the book. So that's where we got, we know that there's more than that. But for 33 victims, think about hundreds and hundreds of people that could be associated with one of those victims and how far that tragedy goes out.
Mm-hmm.
One murder could affect 200 people.
Oh, yeah.
That may know them family-wise, friends, coworkers, what have you. Multiply that by the 33.
Right.
And all the people that those people came in contact with or made a difference for, or, something like that. And that's something that really bugs me about victimology and about the victims. And, it was the phrase, the less dead. And that always has annoyed me and bothered me because it was like those people had no social worth. Those kids and young men were someone's children, someone loved them. And it was just sort of like, we're discounting that.
Yeah.
And it's really sad about that whole situation. And it wasn't fair the way that Karen got questioned before. How did you not know about this? How did you not? And I was like, that's not fair to put that on her. And if anybody ever met Karen Kuzma, they would have realized that she was one of the sweetest people that ever walked the earth.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she was one of my best friends.
And it's so sad that it's so sad that the 33 they thought were enough when we know that there are so many other people out there that will never have the answers.
Yeah, but that's, I guess, being annoyed at the 1978 police department. Yeah, I think they could have done better, whatever. But I guess what annoys me is that there's people that have YouTube shows and podcasts and make documentaries about Gacy, and they still regurgitate the bullshit police narrative. And it's like, as someone that owns everything, all of Gacy's records and receipts and blah, 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 and I've been going on and on about this for like 12 fucking years, I can tell you that he was up to no good when he was like, you think he's just traveling for fun and he really desperately wants to do a build out on a pharmacy in New Jersey on a random Tuesday through Thursday, and he's not going to do anything. He's totally innocent. Just, it seems very bizarre to me that there's so many people that believe whatever bullshit Wikipedia says about a case as though, you know, that's the end all be all. Also, on the other hand, we're saying that cops are bad. If all cops are bad in 2026, wouldn't they be somehow way worse in 1978? Like with no checks and balances, no cell phone photos or video, no, you know, Ring doorbells, capturing things. Like, wouldn't you assume that they'd be worse, not better?
Yeah.
But apparently to a lot of my peers, it's like, nope, we're good with we're good with 33. It's very frustrating, but neither here nor there.
And John, the thing about it is, when you talk to killers, other serial murderers, and you will hear some of them say, well, the first kill is the hardest one. Well, yeah, I guess that's sort of like someone who's addicted to drugs, that you never get that high. You're always chasing that high. But the one thing with, the first victim, his name just escaped me.
McCoy.
Yeah, McCoy. John knew that after 7 to 10 days that nobody came looking for that boy or no one called, he knew right then what he could achieve and accomplish. That no one came looking for him. He stuck him in the crawl space, and guess what? There's no consequences.
Yeah, he just moved on with his life. And
then you keep going, and then you sort of just move out, and you spread out, and that's and we've talked about this before, even hidden meanings in the paintings. And some of the I guess the anniversary paintings or whatever you wanted to, the prestigious numbers. I think there's all kinds of hidden messages in those relating to victimology, victims, just all kinds of things.
Yeah. Dude is prolific.
Yeah.
In a scary way.
Yeah. Yeah. Crazy. But yeah, what else is...
I don't know. You're the host. You seem stunned.
No, I'm sorry. I just got stuck. No, the whole... it'll just endlessly piss me off. The defaulting to the official narrative, I think, just as it's just, again, it's the default. It's what people know. And so it's what we have to work with, basically. And it's, I think, important to just correct or bring to light what we know that can, again, just correct the inaccuracies or mishandling of, cases like this. Because this isn't the only one. It's not like this is an outlier. It seems like it's more standard that there's more to shed light on, especially with older cases like this.
I mean, I wouldn't be making a documentary if there was nothing to talk about, I suppose. So,
right.
So on that end of things, I feel like we can do a lot of good in the Gacy case by giving some unidentified victims' families some answers for once, and people that have submitted their DNA. Because Cook County Sheriff's full of shit, and they pretend like they give a flying fuck. But I mean, I've talked to so many families that are like, yeah, I submitted DNA and no one ever writes me back. So even if they tested said DNA and it came back as, not a match for a victim that was in the crawl space, I don't know. I think responding to a parent might be a good look, but
yeah,
they just want to control the narrative, keep the case open enough so that it's technically an open investigation. And if it's an open investigation, it doesn't become an archive of insane material that people like me can go through, and
they can pick and choose what they release, essentially.
Right. Yeah. And every 6 to 8 years, they, solve another victim, or name another victim. But, in our lifetime, they will make sure that the remaining batch will never be named, because, I mean, they might name another one in 8 years, but it will never be down to 0, because that's by design. Anyone that was alive in 78 has to die in order for them to ever fully solve that case, is my theory, and I think it's pretty accurate. Because if they do, and it becomes a closed case, all that whole archive, you could FOIA and get answers, involving the pedophile ring and all this stuff that people, again, my peers think are conspiracy theories, but there's definitely nothing. There's no theory about it. Anyways, go on, host. What do you got?
Sophia asked a question.
Okay. Hi, Sophia.
James.
It's about our employee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hi, Sophia. She said, wait, do you want me to read it? Should I read it? Hi, James. Did wrestler share his opinion on John with you? Oh, there it is. Outside of what's apparent in the clips from his interviews.
He was pretty consistent with what is on that video clip, and I haven't seen the full one. That I think, Ryan, you had the full clip. But what the bits and pieces I've seen, that is pretty much what we know. He was just very adamant about that map. That's the one thing that he kept going back to. It was just, I feel that he believed, at the time he was retired from the FBI, but he still was, doing consulting and sort of doing his speeches and stuff like that. I think he probably had to be mindful of what he would say, but that map did come up several times. But what you see generally on those clips is the same thing. That wrestler, he was pretty consistent with that.
Yeah.
Come on, host, move it along.
Okay. All right. I guess the one last thing I wanted to see from you, Ryan, is there anything else from the Karen collection, I guess we'll call it, because you ended up with everything that was in Gacy's cell. Is there anything noteworthy aside from what we talked about today that was kind of pivotal, I guess?
Do you want me to talk about some of this stuff?
Yeah. I mean, well, like, I know you brought, or you have one of the things that was in his cell that.
What are you driving at, my love? What are you driving at?
I mean, I just know that you have the victim book. Like, I wanted to know if there was any.
That was not from Karen. That was from Randy.
Well,
there's two victim books. One I got from Randy. One I did get from Karen. I have the Randy one here.
Oh, okay.
Victim book is something that I think, if I recall, Randy said he started to try to keep track of inaccuracies about the case and specific victims. And then him and John would trade info back and forth by mailing this massive thing. This thing is huge, back and forth. I don't know if you can see that, but yeah, this was Randy's version. And basically it's, pretty fucked up. Like, it's incredibly detailed information about each victim. And John would write a lot of stuff and just be very honest because they're doing research together. And then Randy would take what John says and do further research to see if it's possible what he's saying. They also have like coding when he was out of town. There was when Gacy, I should say, was out of town and a boy went missing. I mean, this thing's massive. I don't know what necessarily you wanted me to say about this, but it's pretty dark shit, to be honest. And it makes me feel weird sometimes looking at it, even though it's not done for sort of nefarious reasons by any means. They're just trying to figure stuff out together. But it is, you can imagine John, to some degree, would enjoy going through that and remembering these people for, the victims that he certainly had a hand in taking their lives. So, it's just dark to think.
Well, it probably helped him relive some of the fantasies, especially going back and forth. And even though he said he was high or drunk or at the time, anytime he gets to go back and discuss that, it's sort of like that aura of reliving that thing. That's why he kept the rings and driver's license and stuff like that. It was his trophies.
But it's also, it goes back to, I mean, this is the perfect example of learning John, right? Like, notice how much he has, this is John, not Randy. Notice how much he has to say about Vukovic, and John was super honest. He killed Vukovic. There was make no bones about it. He won't necessarily say he killed him, but he will tell you who he didn't kill. And then you look at like one of the out of town people, and it's hard to see, but there's really nothing there, because John either isn't bullshitting, or he's so fucked up he doesn't remember this person even existing, possible, or he had help in the abduction of this person, and so he just doesn't have much of a preamble to really discuss. Because like with this victim in particular, he's really just, Gacy is just talking about what the relatives said about the boy, right? Whereas Vukovic, it's very personal. In other words, what I'm getting at is like, this is an admission of guilt. Whereas, but he's not saying that, just by how much information and how he just knows so much about certain victims. Again, there's a lot to go into about that.
Yeah.
It's not really a coincidence that the 16 victims that he was out of town for, I mean, there's just no information from John's perspective. Whereas the other victims, there's I mean, here's Godsick. It's just tons of information about this guy, right? Yeah. That's John being honest in a weird John-like way, I guess is all I'm saying. It's just interesting to study. That's all.
And that's something, it's amazing. What we're 2 years pretty much away from, less than 2 years, the 50th anniversary of this case, the arrest.
That's weird.
And really is that amazing how long this case has lived?
That's weird.
All the people associated with it have passed away. Honestly, cases, historical general cases, unless they're historical in nature, don't have this much gasoline.
Yeah.
And the Gacy case keeps going and
it's because there's so much sort of unsolved mysteries with the case, regardless of how many people say it's case closed since 1978. It's just not. I mean, and I suppose for our documentary, hopefully it will be out this year, but I've been saying that for like 7 years, so we'll see. But at least the general public now is constantly being info dumped with the Epstein case. And I think is starting to understand how insane these sex trafficking operations can be. So I actually think timeliness wise, this is a good era for me to release my Gacy project, because I just think people will finally understand it more. Yeah. Whereas even when we did a screening of our pilot a couple of years ago, which doesn't even exist anymore because we destroyed the pilot and we've totally moved on from what that was. So if you saw that pilot, remember it because it's gone. But I'm not saying that people that saw that pilot didn't understand it. It's not like it's overly complicated, but I just think the general public now definitely has a more open mind and understanding that like whatever Jay-Z is calling the Illuminati or some bullshit, like isn't just some dumb rap song. Like there are people that control everything and we are absolutely fucking powerless. So the only thing we can do is make documentaries, outing as many fucking people as possible, the scum of the earth that are trafficking children, and in Gacy's case, taking their lives as well. And I don't know. I mean, it might amount to nothing as far as arrests go, because like you said, James, a lot of people are dead, unfortunately, that should be held accountable. But I don't know that matters so much as people's stories being told and them being remembered instead of Gacy being the only fucking person that's remembered. You know, we're using his artwork as a vehicle to talk about these much larger subjects, right? Because if you just had a bunch of documents hanging on the wall, well, quite frankly, we would have been out of business by now. So you use his completely insane artwork, like you said, has some hidden meanings in it, even, and you sort of get people in the door that way, and then you can hit them with all these, you know, sex trafficking ring stories and things that we've uncovered in our quest for the truth. And I think that's what makes certainly our museum different.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, blah blah blah. Chloe, sorry, you got to moderate me. I'll
that's
talking.
No, it was a good ramble, and yeah, to build on the documentary, because it's been over 10 years worth of like actual dedicated research toward this and just finding answers. And I think from where things started, like even 6-7 years ago, 8 years ago, it was just a very different understanding. And now seeing where things are, I think you're right with the timeline that we're working with right now, because if you talked about sex trafficking 10 years ago, you were looked at like you're fucking crazy. Like it was regarded as something that was not real. And now we're seeing a shift where people understand that it is a legitimate thing that happens and continues to happen. And I do think that obviously that was left out of the official narrative because it was for
not even left out. It was, they pretended
it just
all of the proof they absconded with, the Rolodex of 20,000 names of people that, you know, John was buying, selling, and trading boys with was just missing. Like,
right.
Yeah, they kept his mattress. We have documentation that they keep the most inane bullshit, but the map that Wrestler was talking about and the Rolodex of you know, pedo people, you think that's a coincidence that those two things go missing? You know, this, and if you know anything about history, it's this. I mean, Epstein's a perfect example. There's still shit that's either redacted or, I mean, I can't remember the figure that I read just last night because I read that shit when it's like 4 a.m, but it was something like, I don't know, 300,000 files are still not released yet. I think it was more than that.
Yeah,
Point being, like, that's by design, right? Because you release enough at a time to where it, and you release some shit that's actually fake amongst it. So people are just left to what is real. It's also fucked up. They get exhausted and then they kind of move on. Oh, the war is happening now. We're just moving on. Yeah, it's different because it's contemporary, you know, current history, but it's the same thing with Gacy. I mean, you just release these breadcrumbs enough to, you know, you're able to FOIA certain things, but not everything, because it's still an open investigation. It's the same basic thing. Withhold just enough to where people will never be held accountable, and then they'll die of natural causes, or the people in charge will kill them, and they will die of mysterious deaths. Like, what was the latest one the other day? Someone related to Charlie Kirk was like his mentor or something. I think he was playing pickleball or something and he died. Like, it's all, and I didn't even read the article, and that proves my point. Like, I don't even know if that was true. And that's the point. I didn't click on it because that's how insane the timeline is now. And that's the point. You overwhelm the shit out of the general public with things that are fucking insane. And then the minions will go on, you know, fucking working at McDonald's like we do and struggle to pay for our children's educations and just put fucking food on the table and then be happy to die. Like, and that's Gacy case in a nutshell. It's the same fucking thing. And it's probably happened I'm 44. It's probably happened, I don't know, a multitude of times in my 40 years of living. And it's just, the best you can do is out the motherfuckers. Don't hold shit in. Live for the victims. Fuck everyone else. Yeah. Hope it all pans out as best as it can.
And something that still just bothers me to this day, and I was fortunate enough that night that you handed me the psychological report, and I was like a kid in the candy store. It was just like Christmas. And I was like, people don't know anything about this.
Yeah.
We were given, like you said, breadcrumbs about that. And me, that thing's what, at least 100 pages?
Oh, yeah.
And within 3 pages, I'm like, didn't know that, didn't know that. And I spent a lot of time studying John. And it was just stuff that should have been released
Right.
to explain. In his case, it would have probably helped more people understand the concept of serial killers and serial murder.
Correct.
Well, why hasn't that document been released? And I was just like, that right there within itself tells you all the stuff that we're not made aware of
True.
that could actually help possibly down the future.
Correct.
And I was just like, something as important as that. And, I think you and I had a conversation where Mr. Kunkel says, you don't have that. And you're like, I do have that. And he's like, no, you don't. And you're like, yes, I do. And, that night you handed it to me, I was just so amazed because even to this day, that thing has been hidden.
Oh, yeah.
Completely hidden. And there's a reason why, because if there wasn't, he's dead. Why hasn't someone published that?
Oh, I will. Don't worry.
So, it's just little things about that all the knowledge and all the documents you have, what, probably close to 1 million documents now, pieces of paper.
Ridiculous.
There's stories, and even the trial transcript. There's so many, what do they call them? Easter eggs in each one of those documents that people have no clue about.
Well, I also have I guess when he was writing Question of Doubt, to bring it full circle, he did like these little smaller books where it would be bits from the trial, right? He would isolate a moment and then he would ramble about his opinion, what they said, what they got. He hated for being such a piece of shit. He really wanted people to tell the truth, and not him, but other people to tell the truth and be very clear about things. So he always made these, and he would just like, these are things directly given to Karen that I have. And he just wanted to tell someone, this is what was wrong with this testimony. And I have hundreds of these little guys of him just rambling about, but in those rambles, you learn so much about his, just where he's at. And then also what he's hearing other people saying that he perceives to be misinformation, and he's trying to correct it, but he doesn't know how. So he just writes this sort of shit, gives it to his sister, and Question of Doubt. Some of it, not much. Some of it ends up in Question of Doubt, and that's partially what Question of Doubt is him rambling about the trial. But it's like I have all these sort of original bits that led to Question of Doubt, and it's just utterly fascinating to hear him complain at all, which is really all he did. But to hear him complain at all is fascinating because he was a fucking psycho.
And the things he chooses to complain about are really something. But yeah, that is something I'm glad you mentioned. In the book, A Question of Doubt, there's a lot of trial transcripts that, at least from the last time I looked, are not public. Like there's some ones that are like just never made it to like the general internet archive, basically. So it is an interesting thing to pick up on as far as, if you've read through what's available online, there's more in the actual book.
Oh, yeah.
And then his comment on it.
I think the last I checked, which was now like 2 years ago, the most extensive trial transcripts on archive.org were the Rossi Cram ones, but I think that Reddit is cool for deep diving on certain things, but the problem is they're not, everyone on Reddit perceives themselves as a legit researcher, which there are legit researchers that use Reddit. So I'm not shit talking everyone. I'm not even shit talking anyone. But the point is, if you read Reddit threads about unsolved mysteries or Gacy in general, everyone just comes back to the same few characters that may or may not have been accomplices. But I mean, you're missing the mark considerably when you think it's that simple, I guess. I'll leave the rest for my documentary, but yeah, is Rossi and Cram and Paskey and Norman involved? Sure. Yeah, of course they are. That's why it's on Reddit. But holy shit, there's a lot more people, many of which are still alive. So I'm not going to name names right here. I'll wait to get sued for when my documentary comes out. That are kind of household names in the Gacy case that are involved, like, in a very bad way. So I just, I think it's interesting that whomever uploaded and probably filed a FOIA and then uploaded the Cram and Rossi ones to archive.org. It's like, yeah, that's cool. I'm glad it's public information, because why wouldn't it be? Yeah. But there's so many more people that testified during his trial that were worse. We'll just put it that way. And I guess the general public just doesn't know this stuff yet. And the only reason I guess I'm lucky enough too is because Karen gave us everything. So yeah, I guess I just answered the question why people think it's that simple. Yeah. We're just lucky to have that information.
Right. And yeah, and now it's just putting it out there.
Yeah.
And I feel like we do little bits of that in the museum.
The museum is the best way to get in a lot. Oftentimes, the Savannah location, especially, to get sort of real time information, because I'll get really excited about something and brain dump to Chloe, and then Chloe will tell the employees, like,
dump everybody else.
Yeah,
but it is a thing. Yeah, it's a trickle down, and I feel like I learned something new about that case every time I read something that we have, or every time I talk to somebody. It's truly insane how much there is left to learn.
Oh yeah.
And I think that's why it's the never-ending documentary. That's why it's the never-ending conversation about so many different topics that this case touches. And I'm glad that we have this one piece of the puzzle, which is Question of Doubt, like, out. And that's going to be, again, it's a piece of the puzzle, similar to how you collect and the collections that you gather, and just kind of, it's like putting together a big puzzle. But yeah.
That's right, honey.
Yeah. But any other things that we want to touch on?
I don't know. You have the sheet of prompts. Did we tackle your prompts?
Yeah, I didn't have many.
Yeah, if you're interested in buying this book, it's available at greatfacemuseum.com.
You have a QR code.
Oh, yeah, with the duck.
I forgot to fucking mention.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that is what it is.
So an hour ago, we meant to mention that there's a QR code that goes right to the website with the book.
We'll ship them in late April.
Early May.
What are we doing? Are we doing something?
Yeah, well, we're doing that raffle for a copy of A Question of Doubt. So that's something that you can just, like, when you are buying the book, you can add on a $10 ticket to enter your name into a raffle for an original copy of A Question of Doubt.
Yeah. And I've never bought a copy. They are always given to me, because I've probably bought 100 Gacy estates over the past 20 years or 15 years. So almost every collection has at least one copy. So I don't know. At one point, did I give you one, James?
Yes, I got one.
Okay. Yeah, at one point I had like 40. So I feel like I just started giving them to people, and then someone, maybe you, were like, it's like a $2,000 book. So, maybe don't just give them away. I didn't charge you, did I?
No, you said here.
Good. I wasn't saying that.
I wasn't saying
you made up for John.
I wasn't saying that to receive a compliment. I was just making sure I did not charge.
No, I was very grateful at the time and still am. It's right over here on the bookshelf. It's right next to Buried Dreams, matter of fact.
Nice.
Well, there you go. So you can, for $10, enter a raffle to. Well, I mean, it's only that's something you can't just buy, I guess, is
Right.
worth
You
noting. You
yeah,
have
you
to
have
add
to
it on
buy.
to buying this.
Mhm. Yeah.
And then we'll ship these out. I could have swore there was something we were doing at the release. Isn't there something we're doing around
Well,
his
we're
execution?
drawing. Oh well, so the actual release, yeah, which is scheduled for his execution. I think we're gonna do another live stream because the idea is we're gonna ship between like the end of April, beginning of May, and that'll give people a couple weeks to actually like have the book, look at it, and
Oh, that's
then
right.
we'll
Yeah.
conduct another live that is more of a Q&A style, I think. And yeah, just see if people have any questions because you do have a lot of interesting kind of bonus material in the back of the book. There's about 25-ish pages just of, you know, a variety of things, some of which, if you've been to the museum in Savannah, you may have seen some of the artwork that's scanned in, a little bit of mentioning Bill Helmer and some of that stuff, but then other things that have just come with collections that pertain to A Question of Doubt that we don't display in the museum. So interesting kind of archival bonus material to peek at.
Good I'm looking at it now. I like the supplemental material.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Good stuff.
Yes.
Anyone have any questions before we fuck off into the night? No worries if not.
Cool.
Could you say cool?
Yeah.
Cool.
I don't think any of it. I answered, somebody asked how many pages it was, and it's 350.
Thank you, honey.
You're welcome.
Did you have any questions, Chloe?
No.
James, did you have any questions?
I don't think so. We're good.
All right.
I'm getting texts unrelated. Okay. Okay. Well, thank you guys for watching us ramble, and I guess we'll do another one of these when you receive your books. And I have nothing to say.
Yeah. Well, and I guess the official release date, I will close out with saying, is May 10th, which is the execution date. So that's when we will host the next live stream. Easy to remember.
I mean, if you're obsessed with the Gacy case like I am, yeah. If not,
Yeah, easy for the
it's
three of us to remember.
May 10th is like a standard day that you remember.
It is. Yeah. But anyways, yeah, thank you all very much.
Okay, peace. I'm ending the stream.
Okay, end the stream. Goodbye.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Bye. I don't know how to do it.
Uh-oh.